Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk and John with you guys. Of course, there's a lot to get to in today's show, but the shooting in Florida is occupying everyone's mind, rightfully so. So let's just do it, John. Let's get to it, and of course we'll give you the relevant context and then a little bit of rage.
Yeah. This is America, and so, of course, we've got another school shooting for you. Today, the target was Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and the situation is still developing, obviously. We actually just got one of the most recent facts right before going to air, but this is what we know so far. The shooter was a former student, a male. I believe the name has been announced as...
Yeah, Nicholas Cruz.
Nicholas Cruz. So far, and much more importantly, 2 people are reported dead on the scene, and at least 14 others have been injured, although those numbers are probably going to change. This is a school of about 3,000 students, and obviously this has traumatized that community. Those people's lives will never be the same after this. I mean, if you've been on social media, you've seen some of the footage that was being sent up by students inside of the school when it was being locked down. People were tweeting video and statements, and it was, as it always is, absolutely devastating to see. We're going to show you in just a little bit. You're seeing there some of the footage from outside of the school.
So Senator Bill Nelson from Florida has confirmed that several people have died. The casualty reports are anywhere from 14, and that's the number that John quoted for you. I've seen in a lot of news stories, all the way up to 20 to 50 in some of the reports. Now, when these shootings happen or a news event happens, the first 24 hours, you'll get a lot of things that get corrected later. So the number of casualties, I'm sure, will change, both the wounded and the killed. But it's obvious that it was an enormous mass shooting in this high school in Florida. It's good to see that they apprehended the shooter. He was a former student at the school. Another student at the South Florida high school said, quote, "He's been a troubled kid and has always had a certain amount of issues going on. He shot guns because he felt it gave him, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, an exhilarating feeling." And apparently he talked about how he knew the floor plans of the high school. Now, this is, again, early reporting here, but that's what one student said about the person he believed to be the shooter, and now authorities say the shooter is Cruz. So
in custody.
Yeah, and he's in custody. So this is the same pattern that we see a million times over. Someone who's disgruntled, a misfit, and again, the other student describes him as someone that other people didn't want to be around too much, given how volatile he was. Looking for glory, looking for strength and power in a gun, and since of course we have hundreds of millions of guns in America, super easy to get one, super easy to access one. Any lunatic can grab it. Anyone looking for glory can grab it, whether it's a politically motivated shooting, whether it is, and that comes of all different stripes, or just someone looking to get into the news and get some glory. And here we are again, and you're never going to prevent it unless you do gun control. Now, look, it doesn't matter. I don't care what your opinion is. And oh my God, but it's my hobby. Okay, my hobby's fantasy football. It doesn't kill anyone. Okay, so if your hobby kills tens of thousands of Americans every year, I don't know, maybe you should think about, hey, can I do my hobby in a way that doesn't lead to as many murders of children? Can I do that? Oh, but I'm fighting tyranny of the government. Really, are you? Who's used their gun to fight the tyranny of government recently? And if they have, they're probably in prison, or the cops probably rightfully shot them. So it's nonsense, and we're not asking to ban all guns, although I think a case could be made. No, they're asking for reasonable things like background checks. 93% of Americans agree with them. But no, not the corrupt politicians, because they get their blood money from the NRA, who are the real terrorists in America.
Yeah, we're going to add obviously a ton of context, and we need to, as we do so often, have to remind the people who might not know of how terrible this epidemic of mass shootings, not just shootings, mass shootings in this country actually are. But before we do that, we do want to go to a couple of videos from the scene. We have 2 students, witnesses to the shooting, giving their account of what happened, and here is the first.
Where were you when the shots rang out?
I was by the highway over there.
Yep. So happened you were on that side of campus?
Yeah.
And you knew immediately what was going on?
Yeah. No doubt. I heard it, I ran.
Have you been able to get a hold of your classmates or some of your friends?
My sister's still in there. She's texting me about it right now. She says to be quiet. And that's all I know right now.
Have you heard anything else in terms of how many people have been hurt? Or
I have no idea. I know one guy got shot in the leg. That's all I know. I heard my teacher got shot, my 9th grade teacher, but that's all I know right now.
Think about the terror in the hearts of those parents. I'm a parent. Jesus, if my daughter was stuck in that school, or your son or anyone, but every time politicians tells us thoughts and prayers, that's all we can give. Let's pray to a mythical God in the sky above who never comes to help us, because it isn't about him coming to help us. It's about whether we can logically pass laws in this country that 93% of Americans agree with. No, we don't have a democracy. We have nothing but goddamn corruption. So now, in this case, it was Broward County. Next time, it'll be in your area. It will. I've told you this, and every once in a while we get an email, we get tweets, we'll get them today again. Hey, Cenk, I remember when you said it'd be in my neck of the woods, and then it was. And then we had a shooting near my house, in my school, in my hospital, in my movie theater, etc. Because the shootings are nonstop. There's a mass shooting almost every single day in America, and they are coming for our kids, and we're helping them by giving everyone in the country a gun. If you have everyone in the country has a gun, you think what, we're all 100% mentally stable, the whole country? No, there's a lot of monsters among us. There's a lot of unstable people among us. There's people looking for glory among us. And we all go to, hey, hand out guns like candy. No one else does this across the world. And they don't have anywhere near the mass shootings and the murder rates that we do.
Yeah, well, Cenk, he's not just giving guns. We actually have a tweet from President Trump where he's giving something else. If we could bring this graphic up. He's giving prayers and condolences.
Oh, wow.
So that's good. It's the first time. I hope it works. It's a radical solution.
Spare me and spare the parents of this shooting and the next shooting about your prayers and condolences. You know what I would like instead? Laws and bills and legislation. We're supposed to live in a democracy. Can we just get a shred of gun regulation before we just hand them out to everyone and go, oh, look, oh my God, another school shooting, the 1000th in a row. Who could have seen it coming? I do. I'll tell you right now, there'll be another one, and another one, and another one. And one day, it's gonna be your kid's school. And if you voted against gun control and you say, oh no, but I like the murder deer in the woods or whatever I'm pretending to do, and my gun makes me feel like a bigger and better man, well, you're responsible. The NRA, you are deeply responsible. All those legislators, mainly Republican, but a lot of Democrats as well, that vote against gun control no matter what, even if you're on the terrorist watch list, even if you're mentally unstable, sometimes when you've already committed violent crimes, you're responsible if you vote against that. We live in a democracy. It is your fault, legislators, when you don't do gun control and our kids get murdered.
Cenk, the only reason I can think of that you're saying it's gonna continue to happen is because it happens literally almost every 2 days in this country. So we're gonna read you some stats now. This is not shootings, and this is not mass shootings, which when I was a kid were rare and big and newsworthy events. This is just school shootings. Just this year, there have been 18 or 19, depending on how you define it, which is almost one every 2 days, which means there's very little chance we're getting to the weekend without another school being the site of a shooting, just like what you saw in those videos. There's been 29 mass shootings, and I think that's probably a pretty tight definition there. Total 1,796 gun deaths this year. It's February this year, and over 3,000 gun injuries this year.
Okay, so that's in 6 weeks.
And it is totally acceptable to the vast majority of the people who have any power to do anything about it. Because they love to talk about how they're strong on security and defense, and they will spend every time you look at the news, military spending, it's another $20 billion, another $60 billion, another $160 billion. What's it being spent on? Who the hell knows? I literally think that nobody in government or the military knows what it's being spent on. If we need to spend $20 billion on a wall, we should do that. Seems like based on Twitter activity today, we could save a hell of a lot of money by sending thoughts and prayers to the border, save $20 billion that way. So they love to talk about defense, but for the things that are actually threatening our country and our individuals, they don't care. Because of tiny amounts of donations they get from the NRA. They will take your child and they will put it on the altar of American gun worship, and they will do that literally every day if that's what is necessary.
So great point by John. So after 9/11, how many countries did we invade? How many trillions of dollars did we spend? How many thousands of US soldiers died? How many millions of innocent civilians died because of our reaction, because 3,000 people were killed? And boy, we were all in a rage, and we ought to be. That's every 3 months in America. Gun violence. Every 3 months, you will have as many people that died on 9/11 will die from gun violence. But there, nothing. We won't invade anybody. We won't spend any money on defense contractors. No, it isn't about keeping you safe. It's about who gets paid. Now, when we got hit on 9/11, what happened? We blindly attacked Iraq. Afghanistan, at least that was the base for the people who attacked us. Iraq had nothing to do with it. But the defense contractors made tons of money. This instability in the Middle East, the oil companies made tons of money. Were you safer? No. Then Al-Qaeda, that was not in Iraq, came into Iraq and got larger. Then Al-Qaeda seemed like wimps next to ISIS, who then grew out of that conflict. Are we safer? No. But the people who bribe our politicians got richer. Now, in the case of guns, we are infinitely unsafe. Everyone is unsafe. You can get shot any minute of the day because the guy sitting next to you has a gun. If he doesn't have it on him, which he probably does, he has it at his house or he has it in his trunk. There's almost one gun per every person, not just adult, for every person in America. That's on average, okay? And yes, they do it to shootings and it terrorizes all of us and it makes us so much unsafer than any of the things they warned about. All that money that they just spent on defense, it was already at $600-700 billion. They added another $190 billion on top to keep us safe from what? Poland? From Canada? Who's about to invade us? No, the invasion is right here, right now. It's in a school in Florida. The terrorism right here, it's in a school in Florida. It's a school in Connecticut. It's a school in Colorado. It's a school all over the country. But it doesn't, none of the corrupt politicians get bribed to keep you safe. They get bribed by gun manufacturers to keep on killing you and your kids. So wherever the money is, that's where these corrupt politicians go. So it's not about keeping you safe. That's just a trick.
Yeah.
In reality, all of us are terrorized every single day, but the politicians keep getting their money, their blood money.
Well, actually, we have something on that, so why don't we turn to that? I do eventually want to get to Representative Chris Murphy, but the reason, one of the reasons that we don't have any progress here is that you have some portion of the country that's making money off of this, and then you have another portion that is just plain evil or insane or a combination of the two. We're going to turn to the money first. This is a tweet. Earlier this morning, NRA retweeted a tweet from a gun maker encouraging people to buy their loved ones guns for Valentine's Day. Since the shooting, they took it down and have gone silent. He had a screenshot, which we now have, that we can turn to. That's lovely. I'm going to be celebrating Valentine's Day later. I never thought about giving her a gun. But the NRA, which for decades and decades was an organization designed around gun training and that sort of thing, now is just social media for gun manufacturers to try to make them a little bit more money on every single holiday. I'm sure that they'll have a St. Patrick's Day ad. Maybe they'll have a turkey next to a gun for Thanksgiving. They can have an elf posing with a couple of guns for Christmas. It's going to be delightful. They'll make a bunch of money, and the great thing is they'll make more money tomorrow. There are people going and buying guns right now because they're so scared of the fact that everybody has guns. It's a wonderful system they've set up.
Yay, murder a loved one for Valentine's Day. That's so cute by the terrorists at the NRA.
And they've gone silent. One of my favorite tweets today was this political comedy person on Twitter who posted, I'd like to congratulate the NRA's social media manager for their upcoming 6-day weekend. Because they're going to be gone and you're not going to hear anything, and then they'll go back to pushing guns. The only thing you'll ever hear from the corrupt politicians who are bought by the NRA is, this is not the time. This is not, no, the last shooting wasn't the time either, and Columbine wasn't the time, and Newton wasn't the time, and you name it, there's a billion of them. The mass shooting in a church in Texas, that wasn't the time. The mass shooting at a club in Orlando, that wasn't the time. Not with Dylan Roof, don't want to do it then.
No, none of it, it's never the time, and guess what it's going to be today? Guess what, Republican politicians all in unison will be screaming, not the time. Not the time to politicize this. No. Instead, where's my money, NRA? Hey, terrorists, where are my money? I'm going to take money from these terrorists called the NRA.
We have another school shooting in, on average, 50 hours. So between now and the next shooting in 50 hours, where are we supposed to have that conversation? Is it at the 25-hour mark? Do I have, at some point tomorrow afternoon, we can bring it up maybe?
So, look, the people who love guns and it makes them feel stronger because they're weak. And they go, oh no, but it's my hobby or whatever it is, and it's my Second Amendment right. And once the tyranny is you guys shooting us. That's the tyranny, okay? But the tyranny of the government, I'm going to stand up to them in the woods and they'll never get me, and whatever the insane crap you believe, okay? And then they'll say stupid stuff like, well, a car could kill someone, and it has. It's run over people. That's right. But a car has another purpose: to drive, get us from point A to point B. Even an axe has a different purpose. Okay, you could use it to kill someone. You could also use it to chop down a tree. A gun, its only point is to kill things. You say, well, look, I like to have fun. I like to use my AK-47 or my AR-15 to butcher deer in my local woods because I'm incompetent and I can't hunt like a real hunter. So I just bum and see whatever the hell happens. But it's not about the deer. It makes me feel good. So when they send out these cutesy Valentine's Day gifts of guns, it isn't so you can drive somewhere. It isn't so you can chop down a tree. It's, hey, take this just in case you'd like to kill something. Wow, sweet. What a lovely Valentine's Day.
Well, why don't we turn to this other video? If you can prep video 6. So literally as the news was breaking in this story, Representative Chris Murphy from my home state, who very often has spoken I would say in a very heartfelt manner about the epidemic of mass shootings and school shootings in this country, was on the floor house on an unrelated issue and decided to talk about this. So we'd like to show you an excerpt of that now.
Turn on your television right now, you're going to see scenes of children running for their lives. What looks to be the 19th school shooting in this country, and we have not even hit March. I'm coming to the floor to talk about something else, but let me just note once again for my colleagues that this happens nowhere else other than the United States of America. This epidemic of mass slaughter, this scourge of school shooting after school shooting. It only happens here not because of coincidence, not because of bad luck, but as a consequence of our inaction. We are responsible for a level of mass atrocity that happens in this country with zero parallel anywhere else. As a parent, it scares me to death that this body doesn't take seriously the safety of my children. And it seems like a lot of parents in South Florida are going to be asking that same question later today. We pray for the families, for the victims. We hope for the best.
And how many times have we sat at this desk and done this story? I mean, the nouns are different, but it's the same story. The numbers are slightly different, but it's the same story. And we've been doing it for years. I mean, obviously you've been doing it for far longer, but like, I know a lot of people think after the lack of response from Sandy Hook that, well, that's it for America. We had a good run. We can't be held responsible to take care of ourselves. But I thought maybe there's some other things that could happen. And then you look at some of the shootings that happened and were unimaginable tragedies and nothing happened after. I mean, if Pulse can happen and nothing happens, if the shooting in Vegas at Mandalay Bay can happen and nothing happens, if someone can go into a church and gun down people at a church in America and nothing happens.
Over and over again.
Over and over, many of them. But I mean, even once in America, if that doesn't trigger a response from America, I don't know if I can come up with something that could at this point. I mean, congressmen were shot at and it did nothing. At this point, other than literally the State of the Union being shot up, I can't imagine what could possibly cause the country to move in action. You can shoot, there's nothing you can imagine. No mass shooting, no school shooting, no church shooting. You could shoot up an airport, you can shoot up anything you want, and America will not act. And we have now tested all of those cases. They're not hypotheticals anymore. We've run through every iteration of this as a country, and we've failed in every case.
So the only two beefs I had with Chris Murphy's speech there, which was a great speech, and I'm glad someone in Congress cares, is he said, it's our fault, we have failed. No, not we. You should have called them out by their names. Chris Murphy voted the right way every time on this issue. You should say Orrin Hatch, the bloodthirsty senator from Utah who takes NRA money and has taken it for decades, is responsible. He didn't want gun control, and your kids in Florida are dead. Name them all. Go through the John Cornyn, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, all the people who took blood money from the NRA, and now your kids are dead because they won't ever do gun control. Doesn't matter what the percentages are. I keep telling you, 93% of Americans wanted federal background checks as one example of the smallest little gun control you could do. And all of those Republicans voted no. Some Democrats as well, but mainly, overwhelmingly, Republicans. So, don't politicize. I already got a tweet saying, they haven't even counted the bodies. How dare you? How dare you? Hey, let me ask you something, you total scam artist phony. All of you right-wingers who cling to your guns because of your lack of manlyhood, okay, and whatever it is that drives you to be so afraid, I need my gun, I'm nothing without my gun. I'm such a pathetic little man without my gun. All of you guys. You say, don't talk now when people are dying. No, don't talk now, that seems wrong. If it's an act of terrorism from certain places, talk right away, and let's go kill all of them, right? Okay, but don't talk now. So then let me ask you something. When did the Republicans talk? When did you talk? Did you wait 2 or 3 days and then say, God damn it, let's do gun control? I love guns. It has nothing to do with my manlyhood. Cenk, that's completely unfair. I love murdering deer in the woods and you don't get it. And one day, 78 years from now, I'm gonna stand up to tyranny and you don't get it, Cenk. So, but I am for reasonable gun control and I acted and I held my politicians accountable. When they took blood money from the NRA, funded by gun manufacturers who love this, they're celebrating, they're high-fiving right now gun manufacturers because gun sales are going to increase after the shooting as they do after every shooting. So did you hold them accountable 2 days later, 3 days later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later? No, you never held them accountable because it's a trick, because you actually don't want to hold anyone accountable.
I got 2 words for you, bump stocks.
We can't even get bump stocks.
What Republicans are fucking talking about, it's been months. It's been months. It's only designed to kill as many deer as possible in a short, sorry, that's stupid. Obviously, it's designed to kill a crowd of humans. That's what it was used for, that's what it's designed for. We can't ban that. If there were bullets that could literally only kill children, we couldn't ban them in America. It would be impossible.
Are you kidding me?
If there were bullets that were magnetically attracted to cops, we couldn't ban them in America.
No, but there are, John. Like, that is not a.
I know, the armor piercing, obviously.
No, it's not a hypothetical. Armor piercing bullets are not for deer, they don't have armor. And the regular citizen doesn't have armor. Armor piercing bullets are only meant to kill cops. We have special bullets to kill cops, and they won't ban them. And then they'll go around and do hashtag Blue Lives Matter. No, if they're beating up on black people, then all of a sudden, they're cops, way to go. Yeah, keep those black people down, right? Oh, you're getting murdered out there by armor-piercing bullets? I don't give a crap, go ahead and die, what do I care? Cops, I don't give a crap about cops. That's what all you right-wingers say. You right-wingers hate cops because you allow those armor-piercing bullets to murder them. But no. The NRA spreads their money around. And so those terrorists gave us bribes. We got bribed by the terrorists at the NRA. So nope, I'm not gonna do anything about it. The Republican politicians aren't gonna do anything about it, and you right-wing clowns aren't gonna do anything about it. And one day, when it comes to your neighborhood, you're gonna cry, and you're gonna say, nobody could have seen this coming. Well, for the billionth time in a row, we see it coming. And the funny thing is, we're trying to look out for you. I know apparently you don't care about your neighbors, you don't care about your kids, you don't care about anyone in this community, but we do, including you. We're not trying to do gun control to stop your What did Mitt Romney say? He'd like to hunt vermin or whatever. He liked to rodents. He liked to. We're not trying to stop you from murdering rats or whatever that you think you're doing with your guns. We're trying to protect you and your family. Because if the more guns there are, it is an absolute provable statistical fact, the more deaths there are by gunfire. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure it out. And we can show you all the numbers comparing America, where we're drowning in guns, and every other country that has gun control, where they don't have mass shootings.
Yeah, it does not take a scientist to show it, but just in case, scientists have shown it. So I retweeted Trace Dominguez, a YouTuber from the network Seeker, who did a tweet compiling a number of different studies correlating with the correlation between the number of guns and the number of shootings and the disparity between our country and others. So if you feel the need, if common sense isn't enough, if you have to see the scientific evidence, there's an abundance of it.
All right, let's take a break.
Yeah, let's do that.
We'll do other stories when we come back.
Oh, did you guys help us win a Shorty Award last year?
Did you?
In the category of Audience Honor for Best Overall YouTube Presence?
Best overall YouTube presence.
We want to win it again this year.
That's right.
We want to win, and we can't do it without your help.
We need you.
We need you.
All right, so here's how we're gonna do it, guys. Look, we wanna win for best overall YouTube presence for the Young Turks, but we also wanna win best in overall Facebook presence and best web series for The Breakdown, which is great. But let me tell you about YouTube presence. Go to tytnetwork.com/YouTube presence, which is very logical. Click on the vote in best overall YouTube presence, also very logical. You can log in using your Facebook or Twitter accounts to create a Shorty account to submit your vote. You share your vote on social media, ba-bang, that counts as an extra vote. You're voting like crazy now. Now, do this for The Breakdown and web series and in a Facebook presence as well. And you're seeing the links to vote on your screen. And don't worry, we'll have them in the description box below. So easy peasy, you just go right there, just click, boom, you're there. And get a load of this. You can vote once per day all the way to February 22nd.
Every day, every day.
Go nuts, have fun. You know, we always tell you to get out and vote. This gives you an opportunity to do it over and over again. Sorry, you know, by the end, we might just get tired of winning.
No, and this is great practice for the midterm elections. You know, get that voting muscle in order.
That's right, here we go, ready?
Yeah.
Practice.
Hey Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Frozen crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
back on the Young Turks. Look, I get worked up on these stories. So, as I was telling John during the break, I'm pretty sure I said manlyhood a couple of times. That's manhood. Newton is in Massachusetts. Newtown is in Connecticut. And on to serious matters, unfortunately, there are not 2 dead. There are now, what, 17 dead?
Yeah, we're gonna have more details at the top of the second hour about that.
Dr. Chaos MD writes in, the US is where failed ideas go to thrive, privately financed elections, endless war, trickle-down economics, profit-based healthcare, thoughts and prayers instead of common sense gun legislation, etc. Excellent point. And then Chris Allen writes in, when will pro-life protesters leave the abortion clinics and protest the NRA?
Seems unlikely.
Pretty great point, but no.
And super fast, I know that some people, including some progressives, get mad when we talk about the thoughts and prayers. Obviously, like for regular people that are just trying to, like that have no power to control this, we understand that there are people who are religious, people who are progressive and religious, that this is what they can offer and so they do. We're not mocking that. We're mocking the people who substitute any action whatsoever under the cloak of the money that they have been bought with to get them to not act. They do the thoughts and prayers, obviously.
All right, now let me go to YouTube Super Chat where there is a lot of comments today. Drew Wilson says, the worst part is that it doesn't matter if the shooter has a motive, get pissed off, no problem. Go ahead and get guns and then kill people. That's right, doesn't matter what the motive is. And there's a different motive for everybody, it's irrelevant because they all have guns. Tara Styles says, thank you TYT for keeping me sane during this administration. Much love to KV Herfel, a member and Wolfpack volunteer for convincing me to become a member. Please don't buy me a gun for Valentine's Day. Dylan Preston says, I was part of the Stoneman Douglas graduating class of 2016.
Oh, wow.
I can't stop shaking over this horrible loss of life. We need sensible gun control.
If it's 2016, then he probably knows people who are still at the school.
Probably knows this kid, the kid who did it.
That's possible. I mean, it's 3,000 students, but yeah, it's certainly possible.
The shooter's 19 years old and a former student, so Dylan almost certainly went to school with him. Somebody, that's the handle, writes in, yes, Cenk, drag those right-wing pieces of S, they are garbage. Andrew Williams says, I love you guys, but why did you use his name? This kid deserves zero glory. I'll tell you why, Andrew. We only use it on the first day and then we try not to use it. There are exceptions, like Dylan Roof, unfortunately, has become so common that it's hard to avoid. And we do the best we can. But on the first day, we use the person's name because everybody is obsessed with what nationality, ethnicity, and race they are. I'm keeping it real. So what do people want to know? Was it a Muslim? Oh, it wasn't a Muslim. Everybody go back to thoughts and prayers. Who cares? There's nobody to invade. There's nobody to hate. We just go back, okay? Now sometimes people are obsessed, is the shooter white or not white? Who cares, right? But we give the name on the first day. We are a news organization, and then we try not to give it going forward.
Well, 2 things. If it's black or white, then if it's in a black school, we've been doing this forever. Those are thugs who carry guns that shouldn't have them. They're all illegal guns anyway. That's the battle lines drawn. We already know the Muslim versus white person. It's terrorism or it's just a random loner. John, with thoughts and prayers, the last thing on that is also, if you offer thoughts and prayers, it also, hate the term, but it disarms other people from saying, hey, F your thoughts and prayers, because now you're saying F you to your religion, F you to God, and anyone else that's any kind of this nice sentiment. So you're a bad guy now for not accepting their empty thoughts and prayers. Because thoughts and prayers should keep you from saying anything, because that's a great.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's just it's a complex world, and there are people who agree with us on the vast majority of issues, but might be different on that.
Yeah, but that's why thoughts and prayers is the one, because it's disarming of anyone who says, "Hey, you're not doing anything."
And almost universally, when politicians do it, they know that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a great point by Jair, and I never thought about that. It's meant to trick people who are decent, thoughtful people who want to convey some sort of empathy and sympathy towards the victims. They use your empathy against you.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
Okay, we're gonna be mixing it up, which is always tough after a story like that, but we're gonna do our best. Yesterday, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand announced that she would no longer be taking corporate PAC contributions in the future. And just late last night, the same day, she was joined by another, Senator Cory Booker, who tweeted this: I heard from constituents today asking about corporate PAC contributions. I'm joining several of my colleagues in no longer accepting these contributions. Our campaign finance system is broken. I think at Stop Big Money for their work. it's time to pass campaign finance reform. And if you didn't see the announcement yesterday, just for context, Senator Gillibrand said, I will no longer accept donations from corporate PACs, and I wanted to share why I've made that decision. I hope you'll join me in doing everything we can to fight to reform our broken campaign finance system. And she included a video message which we played on the show yesterday. It's online if you want to see it.
Okay, so Booker accepted $1.8 million from business PACs from 2013 to 2018. So this is no small thing. He's given up millions of dollars to do this. And I think
we hope.
Yeah.
Assuming he does it.
Yeah.
But yes, he says he's going to.
No.
He says he's going to.
No, look. I don't want people to get overly skeptical. And I'll tell you what, look, am I going to be naive? No. And yesterday we explained that Gillibrand is still taking other PAC money, union PAC money, single issue PAC money, but look, I would prefer no PAC money, no union money, no nothing, okay? But this is a great start. Right?
Yeah.
And so if she cares about being pro-choice, she wants to take money from pro-choice, and Booker does the same. I understand, I prefer no PAC money, but we're on the road. And do politicians sometimes violate their pledge? Of course!
Yeah. Greg Gianforte said he wasn't going to.
Exactly the example I was going to use. A Republican ran in Montana, had a progressive populist pushing him, almost lost the race. So in the middle of the race, he was caught, by the way, on a call with his donors, promising them something different than what he was telling the public. He's like, don't worry, I got your back, not the voters. And so he went on and said, oh, me, I'm not gonna take any corporate PAC money, even though I'm a Republican. Good people in Montana, because people in Montana hate corruption, bless their hearts. So, and he's like, no, I'm not taking, and then he gets into office, he's like, I was just kidding, you idiots. I'm a Republican, of course I'm taking corporate PAC money.
Yeah.
And he started accepting it right away.
Yes.
But for this campaign, it would be a bit shocking if Booker and Gillibrand, et cetera, turned around. So I don't think they will. I don't think they will. And today's a day to celebrate them going in the right direction, okay? And so, and if you think it's because of pressure, great. Then put more progressive pressure on other politicians and continue the pressure on these folks to keep getting better and better. But when you get what you want, like at the end of the Brad Pitt Moneyball. Brad Pitt movie, Moneyball. There's a great line from Jonah Hill where he says, you gotta know when you hit a home run. Okay, so this isn't exactly a home run, but it's a solid double, right? So take our double, and yes, don't go home. Keep on fighting, keep on bringing the runs home. But let's keep it real, two significantly establishment figures like Senator Gillibrand and Senator Booker come out and go, no more corporate PAC money. That means we're winning.
Yeah.
That's a great day in America.
Especially with Booker and Wall Street. I mean, I don't know to what extent you can still sort of maybe get around that, but yeah, I like to think that I am being appropriately skeptical. I'm not being, I don't think, unreasonable skeptical. Some people are handed a victory and they're thinking, they set it on fire. Like, no, you're winning, you fools. So you gotta take that. I don't know if this is a double. I would say maybe in the case of Cory Booker, it's a double. Although he doesn't, I would say it's at least a single. Maybe it's a single and a half. They have those, right? You get halfway and you just stand there. Maybe
that's called
that pickle thing.
By the way.
They're doing a pickle between first. I know, but obviously, like not taking corporate PAC donations as big, and we know from his history, it's a multi-million-dollar decision. But there are steps beyond that you can go. I mean, saying we need to reform the system is good. Proposing legislation is better. Supporting a constitutional convention to get money out of politics is better than that.
Yes.
And I would say that even if you're not gonna go that route, the route of what you personally take, it does hit corporate PAC town, but beyond that there's, I will raise money using small donations only from individuals. You could do that, and that cuts out the corporate PACs and a lot of other elements of campaign finance that are bad for the system, or bad for us at the very least.
So look, we started with none. We now have 5 Democratic senators who are taking no corporate PAC money at all.
Let's put that up, just so I can see the names.
Yeah, obviously Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, but Maria Cantwell as well from the state of Washington, and now Gillibrand and Booker. So are we aware that 4 out of the 5 of those folks are going to run for president in 2020? Yes, we are aware. We follow politics, we're not unaware of that. But good. You know what's, hey, they also supported Medicare for all because they're running for president. Good, and I hope they win and actually do Medicare for all and take money out of politics. And I'm with John, of course, look, this group, End Citizens United, anyone who's working to get money out of politics, wonderful. There's some things written out there about how they support more of the establishment candidates. But if they support establishment candidates to get them to stop taking corporate PAC money, great, okay? I'll know you're for real if you're for Wolfpack and you say, no, we're not playing around. We're getting the amendment. We're not talking about little bills that are gonna lose. We're not talking about, beseeching our Republican friends and getting Mitch McConnell to promise a vote. We're not talking about any of that. We're talking about an amendment, get all the money out and the private financing. And if you gotta go to a convention, go to a convention. Change. But this is the beginning of that, and it's great to see what previously, honestly, just even a couple of years ago seemed unimaginable.
Yeah.
For establishment Democrats to turn around and go, I'm done with corporate PAC money.
Yeah, and look, obviously it doesn't mean, well then let's just never check again. I will literally never look at news about whether he's actually doing it. Obviously you will, but it's one thing to say it's something that they're doing because they're gonna run, and it's another to acknowledge, yeah, I want there to be a lot of things they have to do if they're gonna wanna run. I want them to have to appeal to us. That's the whole point after all. And they actually have to follow through, but first we want to make sure that they know who is going to get them elected. Not just in the general election, but in the primary as well. Cory Booker didn't make it through the primary already. He's not like skating by and then he's going to try to get everybody he can. He knows who he's going to need to get through the primary. Yeah, he might also have to acknowledge who he's going to have to get through first, who has a better claim to it, but we'll see about that.
Okay, but lastly on this, because it's really important, understand your strength. You were too strong, and that's why these establishment Democrats are now coming to your position.
Yeah.
Because they realize they can't win without your votes, and you won't give them your votes if you think they are corrupt. Oh, I love it, brother. So all of you out there fighting to get money out of politics, fighting for progressive positions, keep it going, because you're stronger than you realize. You're in the middle of winning. Keep on pushing forward, because if we keep on doing this, remember, over 90% of the country agrees with us. They said that this was impossible, but now we're beginning to move that boulder. And at the end, we will get an amendment, we'll get our democracy back. Wolf-pac.com, if you think that's the right way to do it, by all means. If there's another group you like, sign up for that group. But whatever you do, don't stop, keep fighting, because they're now afraid of you, which is a great place to be.
Don't sabotage yourself. Okay. Have a habit of doing that. Right. Anyway, let's do this one a little bit fast. We've got a little bit of surprising news, a little bit of good news maybe. We've had a lot of interesting, surprising state legislative special elections over the past year and a half, and we've got another one for you. This one down in Florida. It was prompted by the August resignation of State Representative Alex Miller, a Republican, midway through her first term. Now, back in November of 2016, Miller won that seat by about 16 percentage points, which is that's a nice, healthy win in a state legislative race. That district voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton by about 5 percentage points in the 2016 presidential election, so not quite as strong. She outperformed Donald Trump, but still a healthy lead for a guy who lost the popular vote. And so you might think, oh, well, I mean, who's her successor? Which Republican's gonna get it? Think again, Democrat Margaret Good defeated Republican James Buchanan in that special election 52-45, flipping a Republican win in the previous time by 16 points down to a 7-point Democrat win. So 23 points, which is not as high as in a lot of the special election we've seen, but it's still a nice, healthy reversal.
I want to give credit to all the people that deserve it here, including Sister District, that is apparently a group that encourages liberals across the country to donate to Democrats in tight state legislative races. Good. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we'll try to get them on Rebel headquarters. I love people fighting the good fight at the grassroots level and making a giant difference. And I also want to congratulate all the people who were amped up to go vote, especially in these races, especially in primaries. You'd be shocked at what a difference you could make if you just go out and vote. Okay, so many times in general elections we get a Hobson's choice, okay? This corporate person or that corporate person, go fight in the primaries. Now, and then they will tell you, oh, no, primaries, don't waste your money, don't waste your resources, a lot of things to discourage you, right? And then there's races like this, which are general elections, and you've got a good Democrat versus a corporate Republican, and they discourage you by saying, oh, don't bother. They won by 16 points, there's no way. Well, it turns out, I mean, how many times have we seen now 23-point swings, 39-point swings, et cetera, all over the country? So don't let them keep you down. Go out there and register. By the way, we're trying to make it as simple for everybody because primaries are coming for all of the House and for a third of the Senate. So tytnetwork.com/register. That gets you to a place where you can just enter your state. It's an official government website. We redirect you there, okay? Because it's just easier to our URL is easier. Theirs is a mess, okay? So go to tytnetwork.com/register and go to your own state. Find out how to register. It's really simple, and then find out when the primaries are and go vote in them. You can and have made a giant difference. Now in Florida, we're starting to take back those legislatures. We got a lot of work ahead of us because between 2009 and 2016, the Democrats lost over 1,000 seats at the state level. 1,000. Now we're taking them back one by one. So get out there and fight, fight, fight. Because right now in Ohio, so-called moderate Republican John Kasich has closed down every clinic in the state. So now you have a right to choose, but not in Ohio. If you're rich, maybe you can go outside the state of Ohio. If you're near the border, maybe you could find a clinic outside of Ohio. And how does he do that? They vote, you don't vote. They gain all the legislature, they gain the governor, and then they pass anything they like. In South Dakota, over 70% of the voters, Republicans and Democrats alike, voted for a ballot initiative, again, to take corruption out of the system, to ban lobbyist gifts. And then the Republicans came in and said, I don't care about your ballot initiative. What do you think, that's democracy? And they just ripped it up. And they said, no, we're just not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it. And then they took a picture where they bragged and showed the gifts they got from lobbyists. Oh man, oh Jesus, they rubbed it in your face. As long as you keep voting for, look, and there's plenty of corrupt Democrats, and don't vote for corporate Democrats either, okay? But almost all the Republicans are pro-corruption. They say, yeah, I want the lobbyists' money, I want their gifts, I want their donations. I'm gonna call it free speech from a corporation, which is a person.
In the gerrymandering.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna take it. So don't let them do it to you. Go out there and kick their ass. They just did it in Florida, just last week, a rural stretch, slightly outside of St. Louis in Missouri, another seat that was Republican. Democrats got it now. A little while back, a rural part of Wisconsin, deeply Republican, that was over a 30-point swing, now Democratic. Go out and vote, you'd be shocked at what you could do, including changing the world.
Yeah, and it's probably too late for this cycle, but after you register to vote, start looking into running possibly. It's not for everybody, it's extremely complicated, it's hard on yourself, it's hard on your finances, on your family, but if you can do it, now is exactly when you should be doing it.
Okay, watch Rebel Headquarters, okay? The guys, the people that are running all across the country right now, they already made that decision however long ago, a year ago, et cetera. They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're the most real people you have ever seen in your life. And they gave up their jobs, they gave up their comfortable life or not comfortable life, depending on what job they had. One of the women was working in a chicken factory, putting diapers on chicken. You know why? That was the job she has in West Virginia. She's got to do what she's got to do.
See, I do that, but just as a hobby.
Okay, better than some other people's hobbies. Anyway, and they're running for office and they need small dollar donations of volunteers.
Yeah.
Even if you're not gonna run, go out there and volunteer and make a difference. And if you wanna watch those interviews, youtube.com/TYTpolitics, or just become a member where you'll get all of that as part of all of our shows. And that's of course tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, we gotta take another quick break here.
Yes,
when we come back.
What should be the biggest story of the week?
Exactly.
I think.
Yep.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small. I never heard that one before.
Look, we're doing interviews over there at youtube.com/TYT interviews. And we've done some amazing ones recently. So now, of course, you know the person most widely considered to be the most progressive senator is Bernie Sanders. Yeah. Why not back him during the 2016 primaries? Why be a Democrat at all?
And we're in the time where you cannot, in good conscience, sit on the sidelines of history in 2017. Right.
I know what you're thinking.
I love how you do something with your lips when you play the sound clips.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Look at his lips.
I was a woman.
No, you're closing your mouth. Usually I'll be like, and I'm like, is he like lip syncing it?
I don't know. I never noticed it until you said it.
It's a funny habit.
It's not human intelligence!
TYT member.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Super last thing writes in. The thing is that they say that now, referring to Gillibrand and Booker, but after they get the nomination, the money will flood in. They just want to steal Sanders' thunder, and when he's out of the picture, the money will roll in.
We will see.
We'll see. It is possible.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's a difference between thinking that might happen and watching for it, and just knee-jerk saying, I don't believe anything this person says ever, ever. Some people have that position. And I'm not saying that there aren't some people who deserve that, but I think it's being applied to people that it doesn't fit with. People can be persuaded, they can be moved by political pressure. That doesn't mean that you just back off and just say, oh, well then I guess he'll do what he's gonna do. No, you keep watching. But some people, like there's a nihilism in some people to just say, no, this category of people, I will literally never believe a single thing about them. And you can't descend into that because it's self-sabotaging.
Gabby Marita, on the other hand, says single or double, it doesn't matter. Only another hit will put points on the board, and that's what really matters. Okay, great.
That, in the analogy, that actually makes sense.
As opposed to John's runner getting caught between first and second.
It's the most exciting time.
Okay, all right.
Sandlot, come on, that was great.
All right, Septime Patterson says Bernie was right. That's all. And truth be told, on YouTube Super Chat, which also helps the show when you write in that way, truth be told says will they still take AIPAC money? And the answer is yes. I don't know if those two in particular take it, although I'd be surprised if they didn't, but that is a single issue PAC, not a corporate PAC. Okay, all right, what's next?
Let's do it. Sometimes news slips beneath the radar of most people and most outlets, even though at times it can be, in a very real sense, literally the most important story imaginable. And we've got one for you today that has to do with the future of our civilization. And it's not particularly sexy, but it does have to do with whether or not we can exist as a species. And so this has to do with an analysis of satellite data from NASA and European satellites conducted with data from the past 25 years that shows that yes, the seas are rising, and much more importantly, they are rising faster and faster every single year. And now we're seeing, well, I'll give you some more numbers in just a second, but the study says global mean sea level has risen by roughly 3 millimeters per year since 1993, which resulted in nearly 3 inches of sea level rise over the past 25 years. Now that may seem small on a year-by-year basis, but the thing about years is that they keep on coming, and the thing about the ocean is that it's really big, and so it takes a lot to raise it inches. And over enough decades, that will get worse. But here's the more important information. After reviewing data from satellites studying ice sheets in Greenland and the Antarctic, the researchers noted the rate of sea level rise over those past 25 years slowly increased by about 0.08 millimeters per year, which again, on a yearly basis is a small thing, but just like with compound interest, it adds up over time in a big way. Extrapolated out over the next 80 years or so, this means the Earth could see a 2-foot jump in sea level in that time period. Now 0.08 millimeters, not gonna get your shoes wet. 2 feet, if you live in Miami, if you live in Bangladesh, if you live in the Philippines, or so many areas where literally billions of people live. 2 feet is the difference between living and swimming. And humans are better at one than the other. I don't want us to have to choose. So we got some more data, but what do you think of these initial results?
Okay, so first of all, if you live in Miami, you won't.
Yeah, you won't.
When the oceans rise 2 feet, you're gone. Miami's gone. And it sounds like hyperbole, like, no, come on, don't be ridiculous. No, look, and we're talking about that is by 2100, okay? So that's actually not that long. We're in 2018, that's 82 years from now. And it, by the way, it doesn't happen just at once. If you're thinking like, oh, that's okay, I won't be around. It keeps rising throughout the years. It doesn't go from 0 to 2 feet. It'll get to 1 foot before it gets to 2 feet. And by that time, Miami's probably already gone. And you know, cities like Miami and even Los Angeles here, we haven't been around that long. So I think that I saw a shirt that Miami Beach has been around only since 1915. These are all rough, of course. It might have been when it got incorporated or whatever. That's only about 100 years, right? And 100 years from now, it won't exist.
Yeah.
And so now look, let me give you the context for this, for what the scientists did here. They're like, look, we want to make sure we've got this right. So they did coastal measurements, but they're worried about obviously the tides. Obviously they can account for that, but so they go to satellite imagery to double check. Satellite imagery exists since 1993, but the problem was in 91 there was an eruption of Pinatubo, and that caused the sea levels to rise. And they said we want to take that out because we don't want that to seem like it's related to climate change or anything like that. So they're actually going more conservative on sea level rises. And they go through all these different calculations, and I mention that to you for 2 reasons. One is some significant percentage of Americans have been brainwashed into believing all these scientists who go through these calculations, these endless, technical, detailed calculations, are all lying. All the numbers are made up. The satellites didn't really take those pictures. They didn't actually do that math. All of them.
Yeah.
All of them were bought by the Chinese.
Fake news.
Like, no, if you know the details of the work that they put, their life's work that they put into this, to believe that it's a hoax. I mean, look, I get it. I keep wanting to call you stupid because it is an unbelievably stupid thing to believe, but it really isn't about intelligence, it's about ignorance. And you've been brainwashed by the Fox News of the world and Donald Trump's into believing outrageous, insane things like that. All of the millions of scientists in the world are part of a global conspiracy. Yeah. No, they do math, they do science. And the second point I wanted to make, and why I brought that up, is that they say these are the most conservative estimates. So they're like, look, we're trying in every way to make it as conservative as possible. We don't want to get into hyperbole. Besides which, we're scientists, we're generally skeptical, and we don't want to, overstate things, etc. The high end of how much the sea level could rise by the end of the century is 250 centimeters. That is over 8 feet. There are ice shelves on the land. When they fall into the ocean, they are then in the ocean. That is one of many phenomenon. But that's a fact. The Chinese didn't make that up, and it adds up.
Yeah, and actually, even slightly more important, if we go to graphic 12, the 55% of the rise that we're seeing can actually be attributed to water expansion from just hotter water. Hotter water is bigger. I don't know if I think everybody knows that, but I don't know for sure.
No. You think conservatives know that? They think, oh, it snowed. There's no such thing as climate change.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's very easy for conservatives who aren't interested in science to just say they're all bought out. I don't understand what they're doing. It's a bunch of numbers. It's scary. If you'd like to see what some of these scientists' actual work is like, in a couple of months, my documentary series, True North, is going to be coming out. These are the people that I was riding around in a sealing vessel up in the Arctic for a couple of months last year. They do work on this sort of information, so you're going to see their work. Now, I know what you're going to say, John, you were bought off too by the Chinese, and I don't have any response to that, sorry. Maybe I was, I don't know. But also, and again, the 2 feet thing, by 2100, it sounds like, okay, that sounds really scary, but I'm probably not even gonna live. I eat a lot of bacon and a lot of sugar. I'm not gonna live that long. But here's the interesting thing about the water, is it's not just, this is the ocean. It changes over time, and sometimes there's bad weather, and sometimes it gets really stormy. And so 2 feet average is really bad. 1 foot average, which is gonna happen way earlier when you have a storm surge or when you have a hurricane, is way worse than what we have right now, and it is not going to take long for us to get there. The 2 feet, we're already gonna be way away from Miami at that point because it will have been devastated by so many intense storms that it will be uninhabitable, even before it's permanently underwater.
Now look, maybe this is too doomsday-ish, and some of you will say I'm getting carried away, but when I go to Vegas is for a different reason. I look around those unreal palaces that they have built in Las Vegas, and I think one day there's some chance I'm gonna come back here with my kids and it's gonna be like old Roman leftovers, right?
Ruins.
Ruins, thank you, I was looking for that word. Okay, it's a complicated word, even though I have the best words. Anyway, it's gonna be, because at some point we're gonna have a devastating economic collapse. Okay, that's a different story. Every time I go to Miami, and I try to go to Miami as often as possible, I soak it in, because I know tick-tock, tick-tock. In my lifetime, I can nearly guarantee you Miami's gonna be wiped out. Look, some portions of Miami might survive. South Beach, no chance it survives. These scientists, they're not making the numbers up. We can see it with our own eyes. Just because CNN doesn't talk about it and the whole world doesn't concentrate on it. Actually, the whole world does, just we don't, America doesn't. Just because the American media and the American politicians are corrupt and don't talk about it, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. The ocean is definitely rising.
Yeah.
Even if we acted quickly, which we're not, to
we're
fight
going the opposite direction.
Yeah, we're going in the opposite direction. Even if we fought super hard to end climate change, Miami's probably still doomed. But in the current rate that we're going, there is no way that it survives. So I know some people say, don't say that because every day that a goofball goes to Miami goes, that's still around. right? They're gonna say, oh, well, no, you guys were wrong. But facts are stubborn things, man.
Yeah.
And the ocean is not interested in your feelings or in Fox News propaganda. Yeah. When it rises, it will wipe you out.
And finally, if you think this research coming out from the satellites that we have, all the scientists, if you think that the White House isn't paying attention and isn't doing anything, you would be wrong. The White House's 2019 budget request proposes cutting the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's climate research initiatives by 37%. So if this research is scary to you, maybe we won't have it in a couple of years. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
We're gonna lose major cities.
Think of Tampa.
I just went to New Orleans. It's already underwater, man. Look, there's an argument to be made that that was not a brilliant place to build a city, and they built it there a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, but it's got. I mean, there's so many cities that are going to be gone.
There's tools you can use where you can plot in a certain amount of additional warming, and at 2%, which is we're definitely going to hit 2%. I did LA. And there is a bunch of water that comes in an arm through Santa Monica and through the Mar Vista, Culver City area. And my house, I don't live near the beach. I'm not even close to the beach. My house would be underwater by about 2100 with 2 degrees of warming. I live by the highway. It's not even close to the ocean and it's underwater.
The only good news is the oceans will one day rise up and swallow up Wall Street. That is near the water. True. Manhattan is in trouble.
Manhattan's doomed. Manhattan's doomed.
Oh yeah, Manhattan's in a world of trouble.
There's a great novel by Kim Stanley Robinson who does great science fiction with a lot of science in it. It's like 2061, I think it's called, and it takes place in flooded Manhattan, and it's just awesome. You should read it.
Damn, I forgot how over time we are. But the Mercury, can we do
super fast? Okay,
super fast Mercury.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to be thrown
because
in
we're
the
not
ocean
done with doom and gloom yet. Okay.
Okay. More bad news for you when it comes to the environment and the combination of a heating atmosphere and some of the things that have been locked in the Arctic for a long period of time. There may be more than 15 million gallons of mercury buried in the permafrost of the northern hemisphere, roughly twice as much mercury as you can find in all of the rest of the Earth's soils and ocean and atmosphere, which is Earth. All of that is locked in the permafrost. Oh my God, thank God the permafrost is permafrost. It's perma, it's always gonna be locked in there. Except that it might not be, because according to a 2013 study, the northern hemisphere is gonna lose anywhere from 30 to 99% of its permafrost by 2100, assuming current human greenhouse gas emissions continue unabated. Which means that amongst other things, and we have talked about other things like anthrax and other sorts of long dormant diseases, viruses, things like that, huge amounts of carbon, which means that you get a sort of ironic acceleration of climate change once the permafrost is melted. We also will have an unimaginable amount of mercury, which will go from being locked in permanent ice, icy ground in the tundra up there, and now will begin flowing out into the waterways, into the oceans and all of that, accumulating far down the food chain and then slowly working its way up to animals like humans.
They say the mercury might get in the water once it melts. Of course, it's melting from the permafrost. Of course it's gonna get in the water. It's impossible to stop it from getting in the water. Then you know what happens? There's mercury in the water, we're screwed. So, we're almost literally playing out a Lord of the Rings scene. You know, when the dwarves dig into the earth and they keep digging and digging, that's what we're doing with fossil fuels. Okay, we're doing the oil, we're drilling into the ground, we're doing the fracking, drilling into the ground, getting the gas, and the dwarves keep drilling and drilling and drilling until, oops, they release the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Now, in their case, it was the Balrog. In our case, it's mercury and methane. So even if the methane and the mercury was not released from the permafrost and from the ice caps, we'd still be doomed on the carbon alone, on the greenhouse gases alone.
Yeah.
But the methane makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
And then there's the mercury in the water. So that's our Balrog, and its release is nearly inevitable.
Wow.
So again, it's not that I'm being too doom and gloom. It's that most people don't have the facts at their disposal. If you knew all the facts as the scientists do, like the scientists, you'd feel like you're trapped in some sort of weird science fiction movie where you're at the beginning, but you can't break out of the beginning. You keep telling the president and everyone else, you don't understand, a disaster is coming.
It's Groundhog's Day, but there's no snow in the future.
And the next day, you keep telling them and telling them, but in this movie, they never believe you. And so,
hashtag climate change, you shall not pass.
Hashtag the Balrog is coming. All right, that's it for the first hour.
Wow, we had great other stories.
I know,
we can't do them. We're so over.
Yes, you know what replaced the other news stories? News.
Yes, that's true.
The shooting in Florida. Okay, it's almost as if we do a news show. Now, among the different things we'll discuss in the next hour, we'll give you an update on that shooting. The story of justice in America, that West Virginia cop and what happened to him. First, it was grotesque injustice. Now, a tiny bit of justice now that this case has been settled. And then I'll just tease it this way: 3 Trump properties applied for 144 openings for seasonal jobs, including the so-called Winter White House, Mar-a-Lago. Now, try to guess, of the 144, how many went to foreign workers? How many went to Americans? Okay, we'll come back and tell you.
Oh, did you guys help us win a Shorty Award last year?
Did you?
In the category of Audience Honor for Best Overall YouTube Presence?
Best Overall YouTube Presence.
We want to win it again this year.
That's right.
We want to win, and we can't do it without your help.
We need you.
We need you.
All right, so here's how we're gonna do it, guys. Look, we wanna win for Best Overall YouTube Presence for the Young Turks, but we also wanna win Best in Overall Facebook Presence and Best Web Series for The Breakdown, which is great. But let me tell you about YouTube Presence. Go to tytnetwork.com/YouTube Presence, which is very logical. Click on the vote in Best Overall YouTube Presence, also very logical. You can log in using your Facebook or Twitter accounts to create a Shorty account to submit your vote. You share your vote on social media, ba-bang, that counts as an extra vote. You're voting like crazy now. Now, do this for The Breakdown and Web Series and in a Facebook presence as well. And you're seeing the links to vote on your screen. And don't worry, we'll have them in the description box below. So easy peasy, you just go right there, just click, boom, you're there. And get a load of this. You can vote once per day all the way to February 22nd.
Every day, every day.
Go nuts, have fun. You know, we always tell you to get out and vote. This gives you an opportunity to do it over and over again. Sorry, you know, by the end, we might just get tired of winning.
No, and this is great practice for the midterm elections. You know, get that voting muscle in order.
That's right, here we go, ready?
Yeah.
Practice. Back on the Young Turks, Cenk and Anna with you. SAS tweets in, John, I appreciate what you're saying about nihilism and self-sabotage, but I'm afraid I'm already there and not sure how to find the exit. Okay, that's a little depressing, but all right. G. LaCroix writes in, 1 inch of water over land destroys everything. You don't need 2 feet. And truth be told, tweets in again, not tweets in, but writes in again on YouTube Super Chat. Thank you, Cenk, for answering. I guess if AIPAC can still buy politicians, war with Iran and others, I'm sure, will still be high up on their agenda. Well, that is one way of looking at it, certainly. And one of the stories we did not get to in the first hour was Netanyahu is up on corruption charges. Now, it's a complicated process in Israel. The police have charged him. It's now up to the prosecutors as to whether he will actually get indicted and prosecuted. And the attorney general is a former colleague of Netanyahu, so we'll see. But significant enough corruption charges for Israeli police to charge Netanyahu. All right, what's next, Anna?
All right, we have some updates on the mass shooting that took place at a Florida high school today. The death toll involving the shooting that took place at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Broward County, Florida, is at 17 casualties so far. We know that 17 people have been shot and killed by the 19-year-old gunman. Now, we're uncertain as to whether or not that death toll will rise. However, there are more people getting treatment at the hospital right now. At least 14 more individuals are injured. What we also know is that after an hour of being at large, the suspect is now in custody. We do know that he's a former student at this high school and he was expelled for disciplinary reasons. Apparently, at one point, administrators at the school were concerned about other students' safety, and they were concerned that this student posed a threat, so he wasn't allowed to come onto campus with a backpack. He would brag about his guns on social media. He would share photos of his guns on social media. We know that he had an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle with several magazines. We're uncertain as to whether or not he had other weapons on him at the time of the shooting. And we will fill you in as we get more details on the shooting. Obviously, this is still developing.
An AR-15, you don't say. Mass shooter and NRA's best friend, an AR-15. You don't need an AR-15 to go hunting. You need an AR-15 if you want to murder people. So 12 people died inside the school building, 2 outside the school building, 1 dead in the street, and 2 died at the hospital.
So what I found interesting about this story was the fact that he was a former student, and based on multiple interviews that I read from current students at the school, everyone would talk about how if ever there was gonna be a mass shooting on campus, it would be from him. He would be the one to carry it out. And one student was quoted as saying, and I'm paraphrasing his quote, everyone predicted that the shooting would happen.
Everyone but the government. The government thought, nah, who cares? Give them a gun. Give everybody a gun. We don't care if people are mentally unstable or if they have a political agenda, or we don't care what any of their motives are. We don't care oftentimes if they were convicted of domestic abuse. There's a lot of things we don't care about. We don't care if they're on the terrorist watch list. We don't care if they want to have bump stocks so they can murder people more efficiently, AR-15s. So many of the mass shooters have used. Armor-piercing bullets, we don't care, we don't care, we don't care. Your kids got shot and killed down in Florida, died in the street, some of them, some inside their schools. You know what the government officials and the politicians and the NRA and the gun manufacturers say? We don't care. We're still making money, so your kids are gonna keep on dying.
This is terrifying. and it's all too common in the US. And to be quite honest with you, when the story first broke, I was uncertain as to whether or not it would make headlines, because shootings happen every single day in the United States. I mean, obviously this shooting led to a higher death toll. It happened on a high school campus, but shootings like this, not like this, but shootings happen every single day in the United States, and we have become so incredibly desensitized to them. But the reality is, there are people, myself included, who live in fear. You don't know who's gonna strike next, when they're gonna strike. You don't know who is gonna lose their temper and who might be carrying a gun at the time. I understand that people have a constitutional right to bear arms. I understand that. But every constitutional right has limitations. And while gun owners, responsible gun owners, should have the liberty to have firearms, I believe that all Americans should have the liberty of living in a safe country where they're not fearful that their children are gonna be shot dead at any moment. When are we gonna value that form of liberty? I feel like I feel hopeless when we cover these stories, because it doesn't matter what we do, doesn't matter what we say, the outcome is always the same. I thought there might be a little bit of change after the mass shooting that happened in Vegas, where 58 people were gunned down. I thought at the very least we would ban the bump stocks, but we couldn't even do that.
And the NRA, in their usual way, lied and said, oh yeah, we'll help you ban bump stocks. And then a couple of days later, when nobody was paying attention, like, of course we were lying. We've got an extra nickel to make from bump stocks. We're all representing gun manufacturers, and they love these shootings. Love them. Gun sales go on up after these shootings because everybody's afraid, just like Anna said. So then they pump more money into our corrupt politicians, and you know how it goes. You want to end gun control, you want to end all the mass shootings and have some degree of sane gun control, get money out of politics. Because when the NRA is allowed to buy politicians, what they spent over, what, 50 or 70 million dollars in the last election cycle? Well, then you're never gonna have gun control because we have private financing of elections. Okay, look, I'll give you some quick stats here to give you context. So the US makes up less than 5% of the world's population, but we're number one. We hold 31% of the global mass shooters. And so if you look at graphic 67 here, by the way, coming in at number 2, the Philippines, also led by an authoritarian leader who encourages shootings. Hey, look at that, number 3, Russia, also an authoritarian leader who is right-wing and encourages violence. And then Yemen, which is in the middle of a disastrous, epic civil war, is number 4.
It's insane.
We dwarf all of these guys. 5% of the world's population, 31% of the mass shooters. All right, deaths from gun violence in 2018, with only 6 weeks in, 1,806 people are dead from just gun violence. Mass shootings, more stats here, 383 mass shootings in 2016. I don't know if you know this, the year only has 365 days, more than 1 mass shooting per day. In 2017, it dropped a little bit, 346 out of 365 days. And 2018 so far, 30 out of 45 days have had a mass shooting. Deaths from mass shootings in 2017, 14,000 people killed in mass shootings alone last year. That is almost 5 9/11s in 1 year. And for 9/11, we invaded countries, some right countries, some wrong countries, killed arguably millions of innocent civilians in our anger and frustration. But we have 5 9/11s every single year here in America, and we're not allowed to do anything about it because our politicians get bribed by the NRA.
And it's not just the fact that we lack certain regulation that would make all the sense in the world to pass. It's also the fact that we don't enforce regulation that we currently have, or the regulation that we have is so watered down and so incredibly weak that it doesn't function the way that it's supposed to. So I'll give you a very specific example. There was the Texas shooter who shot up a church, and it was a former military member who was dishonorably discharged from the military for bad conduct. The military is supposed to report to the FBI when someone is dishonorably discharged from the military because that individual should not be able to pass a background check if they choose to purchase a gun. Well, it turned out that the military had this insane backlog, years and years of backlog, where they were not reporting to the FBI what they were supposed to report to them. And so after that shooting happened, guess what they did? They rushed to report over 4,000 individuals dating back years ago who were dishonorably discharged and should not be able to pass a background check. So for those of you who are saying, well, we have the background check, I mean, what more could you want? It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's a watered down, nonsensical version of a regulation that we should really have. And by the way, the FBI is only given 3 days to do that background check, which is not enough time. Not enough time. I mean, well, people can't wait longer than 3 days to purchase their guns. So anyway.
And then if they don't make it in time, they say give them the gun. Whether it was going to turn out that they were violent or criminals or terrorists or mentally deranged, it doesn't matter. Give them the gun. Give them the gun. Give them the gun. Why does it have to be 3 days? Well, that's because the NRA put pressure on politicians. Hurry up! Don't. Whatever you do, I got to make an extra cent from that AR-15 I'm going to sell. And if that AR-15 murders a lot of people, as it often does, and helps in facilitating those murders, well, so what? I already made that dime. Maximize profit at all costs, including your kids' lives.
I'd like to take a break, so let's do that. When we come back, we will discuss the issue of immigration and just how many foreign workers Trump companies hired recently. Come right back.
Dave, as you can probably see, Skype froze. Froze and crashed.
You know, I'm watching that documentary on the Vietnam War, and there was a TV journalist in the middle of some tiny little village in Vietnam doing live TV as the soldiers were burning the Vietnamese huts, and it didn't crash. And that was 1965, and he was in Vietnam.
Been easy for me. I started off in Brooklyn. My father gave me a small loan of $1 million. All my life, I was told no.
He said I had small hands. They're not small, are they? I never heard that one before.
So one day we're going to a restaurant and we're a little late, and my wife has got high heels on, and then I'm in the car with another friend of mine, and I, you know me, I'm cheap, so I want to go and park around the corner and make her walk a couple of blocks. And my friend in the car goes, please, I'll pay the valet, I'll pay double. And I said, come on, man, you're being too generous. You know what my nickname for that guy is? Aspiration.com. You saw that one coming, right? If you saw yesterday's show. All right, you saw that one coming around the corner. Okay, look, why is Aspiration.com too generous? No monthly service fees, no minimum monthly balance. Isn't that a relief? You're always like looking at did I screw it up? Did I not screw it up? No minimum monthly deposit, up to a 1% yield, free access to ATMs across the world, 10% to charity, and it's clean. Go bank at a progressive place, aspiration.com, go. All right, back on the Young Turks. Only one tweet because we got to go. Eagle Parade says the only thing you got from the Las Vegas shooting was the loss of countless lives and less privacy in hotel rooms.
That's right. That's right.
Usual Band-Aid strategy. Because that was the real problem. Because we had too much privacy in hotel rooms. That was the issue, not all the guns that were used to kill people. Whether they're in hotel rooms, movie theaters, schools, churches, it doesn't matter. God, oh man, it's so goddamn frustrating. Okay, member shout outs today are Charlie Hall and Deborah Marciano. Okay, either way, Charlie and Deborah, you guys are awesome. Thank you. So yesterday in the post game, I showed that I actually invented the phrase fake news back in 2010 because I have the best words and I'm a very stable genius. Which that shirt you can get at shoptyt.com.
I wore the Very Stable Genius shirt on Friday's Power Panel. And it triggered some Trump fans. It was pretty fun. All it said was Trump's quote.
Yeah.
Why would that trigger you?
Yeah, we didn't say it, he said it.
Did I hurt your feelings?
You actually should be like, haha, look at that. The lip is wearing a shirt. That proves how much of a genius Trump is.
They hate being confronted by how stupid their president is.
Yeah, I was wearing our Covfefe shirt earlier today. Did you get triggered by that? He meant it, and it was a really important secret thing. We still haven't found out what the secret meaning behind Covfefe was. Okay, anyway. So this is technically our 16th anniversary is today.
Yes, and it's a bad day.
Yeah, but luckily the party is tomorrow.
Yes.
So obviously we're sold out. You can't get tickets anymore. But if you're a member, you can actually watch from wherever you are. So if you're a member, please check it out. And if you're not, become a member for the same price that it would cost you for a general admission ticket, just $10. And you could watch it live tomorrow. So Jimmy's gonna do a set, and then we've got a 6-person panel, me, Anna, John, JR, Jimmy, and Ben. And then we're gonna do some political speeches too. I am, Allison Hartson is. We might have more politicians if we do more rallies. Anyway, tytnetwork.com/join to become a member and check that out. All right, what's next, Anna?
Okay. Donald Trump has been very clear about his immigration policy. He wants to end so-called chain migration. He wants to do away with visas that allow low-skilled individuals to come into the country. But his actions obviously do speak louder than words. And if you do a quick analysis of the types of employees his companies tend to hire, you'll notice that the vast majority of them happen to be foreign workers. And they're foreign workers who come to the United States on a temporary basis for low-skilled work. So these are not people who are, typically the type of people that he would be supportive of in his rhetoric. So let me give you the details on this. Now, we're gonna look at 2 Trump properties in Florida and 1 Trump property in New York. The time period is between 2016 and the end of 2017, beginning of 2016, end of 2017. When you look at the number of employees that were hired, you'll find that only one of those employees was a US citizen. Hiring managers said they were able to find and hire only 1 qualified American worker, a cook, for 144 open positions for servers, cooks, housekeepers, and bartenders. Interesting, so the United States doesn't have people who could work as bartenders? No one's qualified to work as a bartender? I find that a little strange.
No, Anna, to be fair though, it's in the remote areas of New York and Florida.
South Florida.
Yeah, have you ever heard of an American bartender in New York?
Never, never. It's a rarity. In August of 2017 alone, for instance, Mar-a-Lago and Palm Beach sought permission to hire 70 servers, housekeepers, and cooks for 8 months starting in October. Also in July of 2017, the Department of Homeland Security raised the cap on H-2B visas for guest workers from 66,000 to 81,000 for fiscal year 2017. Now, July 2017, that's when Trump is president. Trump essentially petitioned to raise the cap for these foreign workers. 3 days later, Trump Properties essentially asked the Department of Homeland Security to allow foreign workers to work for Trump Properties.
No, I'm sure that it was not connected though.
No, not at all.
Okay, so to me, one of the most telling parts of this is this is the only part of immigration that Trump has increased. So everything else has been decreased. So if you're an H-1B high-skilled worker, the tech guys are screaming that they need more workers there and they don't have enough coders, et cetera. Now, it's not like they can't pay enough money. They pay a lot of money. It's not like the agricultural workers, right? And they're like, we just don't have enough workers. Okay, but Trump says, no high-skilled workers here. I'm not raising the quota on the H-1Bs. The other part of the program is the H-2As. Those are for agricultural workers, farm workers. Now, finding American workers for those are actually difficult, okay? And several different states have tried to kick out undocumented immigrants and then put out notices to try to get American workers and then increase the wages, and they still couldn't get it done, okay? But bartenders, cooks, servers, busboys.
No American was qualified for those jobs. Actually, only one American was qualified for one of those jobs. But the other 143 job openings, they had to go to these foreign workers, and no American was qualified. I mean, what were they going to do? What were they going to do?
Because of his rhetoric, he brings down immigration in every other category. But the one category where he hires workers, somehow that goes up. And 3 days later, he gets a permit to hire almost everyone from outside the country.
This is why when we brought up the issues of conflicts of interest, we made such a big deal about it. Because if you have a president who is a business owner, he's going to use his position as president to push for and pass legislation and policy that benefits him and his bottom line. And that's exactly what happened here. Look, I have nothing against bringing in foreign workers based on these visas, based on these job openings, if it makes sense. But in this case, I mean, listen to his rhetoric and then take a quick look at his actions. I'm pretty sure there were Americans that not only were qualified for those jobs, but would have gladly taken those jobs. So let's take a look at how much was offered in regard to pay. So Mar-a-Lago offered $10.33 per hour for housekeepers, $13.43 for cooks, and $11.88 for servers. No tips, which I don't understand why no tips anyway. So they offered wages comparable to what Americans are getting paid in other jobs. And so, the argument is always, oh, well, Americans won't take the jobs because they're not making enough money. But again, these are wages that are comparable to other companies that have similar job openings.
So one way that you could have gotten American workers, if it was true, by the way, so by law, they have to follow this procedure to say, well, I tried to get American workers, but I couldn't. And oftentimes, especially for like H-1B workers, that's real. You actually, those are very specialized workers. You put out notices, you can't find anyone, and then you go outside the country. Okay, in this case, they're like, oh, well, we put it in the newspaper for a little while, and golly gee, we didn't like anyone who applied. And by the way, did the government check to see if any of the things that the Trump properties are saying is true? No, nobody checked, okay? And okay, so you can't get a cook for 13 bucks or whatever, why don't you try 15 bucks? What should be the minimum wage? Which, by the way, is the argument that people make, and mainly on the right wing, but some even on the left wing, saying, why don't you just increase wages? I mean, there is a price at which Americans will pick tomatoes. There's certainly a price at which they'll become a bartender. There are bartenders all across the country.
So you made a really interesting point about how there is a price at which Americans are willing to do some of that agriculture work, which, by the way, is backbreaking labor, very difficult to do. But there have been multiple case studies, including in Napa Valley, California, at the vineyards, where the farmers would increase the wages. It would be beyond a living wage. They would also offer health benefits and other benefits to their workers in these job openings, and Americans did not want to take the jobs. Time and time again, they did not want to take the jobs. It's difficult work. It's so hard. And I think that we really overestimate how much of a difference the pay would make in certain fields of work.
But not these fields.
Not
There's
exactly,
cooks all
yes.
over the country. Okay, so so you don't take our word for it if you're a right winger, and there was very little possibility that you would. So I'm going to quote someone who can't stand immigration, Mark Krikorian, although I'm pretty sure that his family at some point immigrated here. Anyway, executive director for Center for Immigration Studies, he advocates for immigration restrictions. and he really, really likes Trump. But on this H-2Bs, he's confused, and he says that he's, quote, displeased with what Trump has done, and then goes on to say, and I'm gonna soften the quote here, but he said it pretty harshly, it's a BS law written to ensure that employers don't have to hire Americans. And that's what Trump is taking and going, yes, I get richer. Well, pretend to be for America first. Look at my hat. My hat says make America great again. You think I'm gonna hire Americans? Screw Americans. Of course, I'm gonna hire people from what kind of countries? And by the way, most of the countries he hires from, Mexico, Guatemala, Jamaica.
No, this is yes, that's true. But also, employers in Texas hired the most of these foreign workers.
What happened? I thought you were a red state, okay? The only good news out of all this is that given that it's South Florida, he almost certainly hired some Haitians.
Oh my gosh.
Who are now his cooks and his bartenders. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying. Okay, and look, overall, if you're a Trump fan, you could deny it all you want, but anyway, these are facts. And so you know, he never meant it. And now you know it, He doesn't care about you, he doesn't care about American workers. All he cares about is Donald Trump. How do I make Donald Trump richer if I got a sucker who's gonna vote for me because he thinks I care about the American worker? Even though during the campaign, you saw the stories about how he would hire illegal immigrants, undocumented immigrants over and over and over again. And he would cheat and steal and do scam after scam. And the last thing he wanted to do was hire American workers. Why? I don't want to pay him. I don't want to pay him. I want to make more money, yeah. And he's doing it again as president and manipulating the laws. So if you're against immigration, he's playing you for a fool. Oh, get distracted by the wall, but don't look at all the foreign workers I just hired.
Let's talk a little bit about the economy. This is a story that I found super interesting and I hope you do too. Researchers at Harvard University looked at the issue of social mobility in various countries. And what they wanted to do was gauge the public's perspective on social mobility in their own country and compare it to the reality of social mobility in their country. And what I found so fascinating was the fact that the United States, or at least people in the United States, seem to be much more optimistic about social mobility compared to what the reality is. When you look to other countries, specifically European countries, they're much more pessimistic, but their social mobility is actually a lot better than they think it is. So Harvard University compared perceptions of social mobility in countries like America, Britain, France, Italy, and Sweden against actual levels. It finds that Americans tend to be optimistic while Europeans tend to be too pessimistic. So let's get into the numbers. An American born to a household in the bottom 20% of earnings, for instance, only has a 7.8% chance of reaching the top 20% when they grow up. Americans surveyed thought the probability was 11.7%. So there is some disparity there. I would argue, prior to reading the results of this study, I would have thought that the disparity would even be greater.
Because you're like a pessimistic European.
I'm as pessimistic as can be.
I just want to give one piece of context there.
Sure.
Because the European countries, even though they're socialist, do way better than us. In fact, the more socialist they are, the more social mobility that they have. Of course, in America, we're taught it's the opposite. No, if we have unfettered free market and we just crush everybody at the bottom, somehow that'll toughen them up and they'll get to the top. No, it doesn't toughen them up. It puts them in a hole they can't get out of. So in Sweden, which is far, far more socialist than us, they have much greater social mobility. In about 12%, 11.5%, 12% of the bottom 20% move on up to the top 20% in Sweden. Although in Sweden and in other European countries, they think, no, it's probably less, right? They think it's less than 10%. They actually do better than they realize. And in America, we think, oh, we got this thing figured out, man. We're all moving to the top.
No.
In fact, almost none of us are.
No, but this is for me, I think that the results of this study are applicable to election results. That's the reason why I found this so fascinating, because what always befuddles me is when poor people vote against their best interests, vote for policies and politicians who represent policies that would be disastrous for them and their economic situation. And I think it's because they have been conditioned to think that the American dream is alive and well, and the only thing that's destroying the American dream are these socialist programs, right? And if we just vote for the person who's against these government programs that help the poor and redistribution of wealth, well then our economic situation will be far greater. But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the states that typically lean toward Republican candidates or are just straight out red states, they're often the states that require the most aid in the form of government programs, right? Whether it's welfare, food stamps, whatever it is. And so there's like a disconnect there, and it's all about perception. It's all about the way that they perceive what their future could be, even though if you juxtapose that to reality, it's a far different picture.
So what we're actually really good at here in America is marketing. And so we market the American dream, and I believe it. I believe in it, and I think it's possible. And a lot of people who work here, their parents were dirt poor, or they themselves were really poor, and we rose up, and it's possible, et cetera, et cetera. But that doesn't mean we should make it harder. It means that maybe one of the ways that we got up, for example, the only reason my family got anywhere is because my dad was allowed to get a free college education. Otherwise, we'd still be olive farmers in southeastern Turkey. So that doesn't mean you crush people underneath you. It means you give them a hand up because they actually can rise if you believe in them. But America, unfortunately, doesn't. All we do is marketing gimmicks. So what percentage of people that are in the bottom 20% make it out of the bottom 20% at all, make it to the 21st percentile, not to the top, but just out of the bottom 20, only 32%.
That's so sad.
And again, among these 5 countries that were tested, we're rock bottom. We're the worst. We're not number 1. We're last. Britain, which has socialized medicine, and the list goes on of how much more their government gets involved, is number 1 at 38%. So it's just not true that just taking away any government help for people makes it more likely that they'll rise up. It makes it less likely.
So I love this story. I find it so fascinating, and there's more that I want to share. So let's also talk about how people are likely to react to this very information, okay? When given pessimistic information about social mobility, left-wing respondents became even more likely to support economic redistribution. However, right-wing respondents' support for redistribution did not change. So if you happen to lean toward the right and you are watching this right now, you have already disregarded the information that we have shared with you. You're sticking to your guns, you're not changing your mind based on their findings. Also, nearly half of the states in the United States, and this is not based on the, come back to me. What I'm about to share with you is not based on the Harvard study. This is actually a result from Pew Research. They do their own annual survey to see what the well-being of Americans is like. And here's what they found. Nearly half of the states in the US saw their scores decline, and 0 states saw a significant improvement in well-being from 2016 to 2017. So for instance, people reported more worry, little interest in doing things, depression symptoms, and perceiving less positive energy from family and friends. Less people reported having a leader in their lives who makes them enthusiastic about the future. There was also a decline in people who said they are reaching their goals and happy with their standard of living. Social mobility is so incredibly important. We have a country full of people who are feeling this deep sense of despair because they're working longer hours, they're doing jobs that they absolutely hate, because they have to put food on the table for their families, and they feel unappreciated. And we need to do something to change the way our system is set up, because people are miserable and they will continue to be miserable if we don't change.
I believe in the American dream. I just believe that we should make it more likely, not less likely. We should help people achieve the American dream rather than crushing their dreams. Not too much to ask for.
Yes.
Okay, what's next?
All right. A police officer in West Virginia who lost his job for refusing to shoot a suspect has settled with the police department to the tune of $175,000. Stephen Mader is the name of the cop who got fired. And the case all began when he was called to a home where a domestic dispute had occurred. he was immediately confronted by the suspect who was holding a gun. Now it was an unloaded gun, and Stephen Mader, the cop in the story, realized that this guy didn't really pose a threat, because as soon as he was confronted by him, the suspect asked him to shoot him. And what Mader wanted to do was de-escalate the situation. He didn't want to shoot him. He told him, "I'm not going to shoot. Please drop the gun. Let's figure this out." And then 2 other police officers showed up to the scene and immediately shot and killed the suspect. Now, the police department decided that Mader had put the other cops' lives in danger by not shooting the suspect, and they fired him. Mader sued for wrongful firing and wrongful termination. There we go. And luckily, he did win a settlement of $175,000.
Okay, so understand that the cops do an investigation and they go, "Oh, Mader was right. The gun was not loaded. He was trying to do suicide by cop." So you're fired anyway. So you showed proper restraint. It's not that there are a few bad apples and then once the bad apples are realized, they throw them out and they fix the bunch, right? No, there's actually a few good apples like Mader, and once they're discovered, they're immediately crushed and thrown away, okay? Now, why? Because that embarrasses the rest of the cops. We went and killed that guy we didn't need to kill, and it turns out you showed, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we didn't need to kill him, so we gotta get rid of you, because it's embarrassing. You're embarrassing the rest of us who are cowards and don't want to take any chances, and we shoot, kill, because that's in the training. Look, when I say that it's not just a few bad apples, it's not to say all cops are bad people. That's ridiculous, right? But it is to say that the training is wrong. They train them to be bad apples. So when they get a good apple, they said, one of the reasons they fired him, they're like, "You didn't follow protocol." They said he had apparent difficulties in critical incident reasoning.
I couldn't disagree with that more. He understood the importance of de-escalating the situation rather than shooting before asking any questions. The other cops arrived to the scene and immediately shot the suspect dead. And I commend Mader for his bravery. I commend him for understanding the responsibility that he had as a police officer. And Jake, I agree with you, there's an issue with the training, but more importantly, even after the training, there's a problem with the culture. Because the culture, at least at this specific police department in West Virginia, is no, you absolutely have to shoot as soon as you think that this person might pose even a small risk. And if you don't, you will be punished, you will lose your job. That sends a very strong message to all cops. I don't think all cops, enter the force as bad people, as corrupt people, as individuals who want to cause harm to people. I think they genuinely start wanting to do good. But I think that they get tainted by the current culture that we're seeing in various departments.
We teach them to be bad guys and we encourage it. Look, if you shoot the wrong guy, you don't get fired. You kill the wrong person, you don't get fired. You don't kill the person and you're right, you get fired. I mean, it's crazy. And you think, like, I know some right wingers are like, "Oh, that Mader is soft, man. What if the gun wasn't loaded?" Mader is a Marine veteran who served in Afghanistan, and since he served in really hostile situations, he said he had a sense of what is actually dangerous and what is not dangerous, and who's going to act and who's not going to act, and he wanted to protect a fellow citizen in West Virginia. He was looking out for you. He wanted to make sure, look, how many people in West Virginia have guns? A lot, right? He caught this guy on a bad day.
Yeah.
And he wanted to make sure that the guy didn't die on a bad day. And he's a veteran who's been through it before, and he wanted to make sure that he protected that guy's life. And they're like, "Well, you must be punished for doing the right thing because you're embarrassing the rest of us who are taught and rewarded to do the wrong thing."
He is exactly the type of person who is well suited to protect and serve. And even though I'm happy he received this settlement, right now he's employed as a truck driver. And that is such a gross injustice.
Yeah, whereas the guys who shot the guy unnecessarily are still cops in West Virginia. And one last thing, of course, afterwards, it wasn't just enough to fire him, they had to smear him.
Yeah.
So one of the things they said was, he put a parking ticket in the wrong part of the car once. Come on. And one time he cursed while confronting a suspect.
Because that never happens with
No, you'd have to fire every cop. I mean, why don't you just say we're corrupt and we'd like to announce how corrupt we are by pretending that we care about cops cursing? Okay, it was a gross act of injustice. We got a little bit of justice today with the settlement, but he should be welcomed in any police force in the country. That's the kind of guy you can get behind. All right, Rebel Headquarters is next. Bye-bye. All right, back on Rebel headquarters. I wanted to let you guys know because the shooting in Florida, we did not get to a couple of stories in the program. We're going to do one of them in the post game for the members. tytnetwork.com/join, and then you could also get the party/rally that we're going to do tomorrow. You can watch it anywhere you want. tytnetwork.com/join. Okay, now let's go on to some of our guests for tonight. Steve Bacher joins me tonight on Rebel headquarters. He's running for Congress in Pennsylvania's 8th district. He is running against a Republican incumbent. Obviously, there's a Democratic primary there as well. So first of all, Steve, welcome to Rebel headquarters.
Thank you so much.
All right, great to have you here. So you've got Brian Fitzpatrick as your congressman there for the moment being. He claims to be a moderate. Is that true?
Not at all. He votes with Trump 83% of the time, according to 538. He claims to be all kinds of things that he's not. He claims to be for good government, but he voted against making Trump reveal his tax returns. He claims to be for the environment, but he voted for bills that continue fossil fuel subsidies and for the budget that cut the EPA. On and on.
So I love these guys who pose as moderates and then vote to cut the EPA and drill in Alaska, et cetera. And what drives me crazy about it is the mainstream media, who aids and abets them and calls them moderates and centrists when they're no such thing. So there's one other thing about this guy that's interesting. He apparently brags all the time that he's a former FBI agent. But you know what, Steve, that might help your cause, because these days Republicans might want to vote against him on that alone.
Well, and not only that, but he does start everything he says with us. He doesn't defend them when the president attacks the FBI, right? And with this latest Nunes memo, he threw them under the bus. So he's just a hypocrite in so many different ways.
Yeah. So now the DCCC has targeted this district as one to watch. And Steve, you're very progressive, so I'm sure they got your back, right?
I'm not yet. Not yet. I'm sure they'll come running in after the primary, but right now they're awfully quiet.
Well, could there be a multi-millionaire Democratic candidate in the race as well?
Yes, there is. He grew up here and he left 40 years ago and he just moved back.
Well, and then could there be a former Republican who's now a Democrat in the race?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
And perhaps the DCCC a little bit more interested in those folks than you.
I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they're thinking.
Steve, I have a pretty good sense of what they're thinking.
I've been fighting for all the issues we care about in this district for the last 10 years. I co-founded the Bucks County chapter of 350.org, and I co-founded the Bucks Environmental Action Coalition, which is bringing together Sierra Club and Delaware Riverkeeper Network and 350 and the rest of us who are all trying to save our planet for our children and our grandchildren, fighting against pipelines, fighting against fracking. I don't know why the DCCC would not be backing me. What can I say?
Yeah, I know why. Of course, they're obsessed with money. Money, 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 money. Do you take corporate PAC money, Steve?
No, sir.
Well, that's why you're not getting DCCC help. And that's why progressives are more likely to support you. So why is the environment your number one issue?
Well, if we don't have a planet, what else matters, right? The environment. I've been aware of this since back in 1992 when I read Al Gore's book Earth and the Balance, and that kind of changed my life. And I've been fighting to keep our air and water clean ever since, and doing everything I can. I have some friends who are very involved with the Citizens Climate Lobby, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is pushing to help us do a renewable energy transition more rapidly by putting a fee on carbon emissions. And that would also enhance investments in renewable energy and create millions of new jobs, even more than are being created today in renewable energy. So it's a win-win. We save the planet and we create millions of jobs.
But Donald Trump has a theory that if people who exercise run out the battery of their lives and will die sooner. And so I'm a little worried that if we do solar energy, we might run out the battery of the sun. I'm not sure you thought about that, Steve.
No, it's funny. My dad was an engineer, and he's been working on renewable, rechargeable batteries and solar panels. My whole childhood, I've been hearing about this stuff. And no, I don't think we're going to run out the battery of the sun now.
Right. So all kidding aside, is fracking a big issue in your district?
Yes, it is, because we have, we're on the Delaware River here. We have Washington Crossing in our district, and 17 million people get their water from the Delaware River, and we want to keep fracking out of the Delaware River Basin. And recently, the Delaware River Basin Commission proposed some rules, which on the one hand would ban drilling, but on the other hand would allow withdrawing water from the river and also dumping frack wastewater in the basin, which would eventually find its way into our drinking water. So I'm one of many people who have been protesting against this and testifying at hearings against this and doing everything we can to just stop every aspect of fracking in our area. And I don't understand why the EPA did not ban fracking from day one across the country, because it's poisoning our water across the country.
Yeah.
As well as polluting the air.
I have a pretty good sense of why they didn't ban it. It might just have to do with corporate money, but
that corporate money thing again. That corporate money thing again. There it is.
Yeah, you libs, you want to take money out of politics and take rights away from human beings like corporations. All right. So among your top priorities are, of course, Medicare for all. We already said you're deeply progressive, but you've got stagnant wages as one of your priorities, and I love that. Tell me what you mean by stagnant wages, and if you were in Congress, what could you do about it?
Okay, well, here in the district, we have low unemployment, but wages are not keeping up with the cost of living, especially the cost of health insurance. And I worked at Bucks County Community College for 8 years, and I saw students struggling to pay the bills at the college with just one part-time job. Many of them have more than one part-time job, and the parents are struggling, not to mention the faculty and staff, because frankly, wages are stagnant there and they're stagnant throughout the district. So what could we do in Congress? In Congress, we could pass a living wage act so that a family of 4 could have one wage earner and keep their family out of poverty. That would probably need to be a regionally adjusted minimum wage, depending on the cost of living in different areas. But I think that's a huge thing that Congress is perfectly capable of doing. I mean, starting with the fight for 15, but in some places in the country, the minimum wage needs to be even higher than 15, and we need to get there soon because families are struggling.
Yep. So every time you say Bucks County, I think give a Bucks, vote for Steve Bacher. So, because I like to say goofy things. Let's show the links. Speaking of giving a Bucks, so if you're watching, of course, the links are down below on YouTube description box and the comment section on Facebook. So you can give a Bucks right at that link right there. You just click on it if you're in the description box or comment section. Volunteer for Steve because warriors will beat mercenaries every time. This volunteer army can take on anything. And then you got stevebacher.com. And then one more thing, Steve, you've got infrastructure in one of your priorities. Why move it up the list? Why is infrastructure so high up for you?
Have you driven in Bucks County lately? The roads are horrible. We have 2 bridges on Route 1 that were deemed structurally deficient. And this is a problem across the country. And it's something that's desperately needed for safety. People are spending hundreds of dollars repairing their cars when dealing with these roads, hitting potholes and et cetera. And it's a safety issue, and we would create lots and lots and lots of good paying jobs if we would pass an infrastructure bill that was paid for with a tax system that charges the wealthiest 1% their fair share.
Yeah,
not privatizing it the way this president wants to.
Well, I was just good.
We don't want to sell our infrastructure to wealthy people so they can increase our tolls and own our public roads. That's just wrong.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, Steve. For Trump, bucks given, zero. So if he has his way, you would get your potentially get your roads and bridges fixed, but then you'd have to pay for them forever through tolls where corporations not only get their money back for doing those tolls and bridges, which is understandable, but maximize their profits from you guys for the rest of time. Do you think that'll fly in Bucks County?
No, that's not going to fly in Bucks County, and it shouldn't fly anywhere in the country. You know, there has been a balance in the past between public good and reasonable private profit. But this Republican Congress and this crazy administration is skewing things towards private profit and corporate greed at the expense of the public good. And we really just need to talk about public good and our shared needs and helping each other and taking care of each other. I mean, government is there to make good, safe roads and on a not-for-profit basis.
Yep.
That's what we should be doing.
And ironically, that of course actually improves business and improves the economy, as we did when we built the interstate highway system. We greatly improved the economy, and we didn't have to rob Paul to pay Peter. And so, all right, I love it.
Exactly, because the wealthiest people were willing to pay their fair share in the 1950s, and the economy boomed, right?
Yeah, no, in the 50s, not the tax rate for everybody, but the highest marginal tax rate was 91%.
Yeah.
And you know what happened? Our economy grew like no economy in the history of the world. So trickle-down economics is nothing but an absolute lie. It's an excuse to keep your wages low, but if you send Steve Bacher to Congress, he's not gonna stand for it, okay?
Absolutely not.
All right, Steve, go get him. I love how you fought for protecting our environment your whole life, and I hope you get to do it in Congress. And wouldn't it be amazing if we had progressive champions like Steve Bacher as congressman? God, I'd love to have you back on when you're United States representative.
I would be honored. It's been an honor today. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Steve. Okay, how is this slogan not give a bucks? Get out there and vote or whatever it needs to be. I'll work on it. All right, when we come back, Jimmy Dore says I should have Jim Cady on the show. He's running in my home state of New Jersey. He's from Belmar. He's coming. He'll be next. I'm going a little over on Rebel HQ tonight. I'm just letting you know, okay? I'm going to read a couple of tweets from Young Turks and from Rebel HQ that were sent in. The Mad Lib says, it's not a bad day for a TYT birthday. TYT was born in fire, made to bring attention to the fuckery going on in the world. Embrace it, too strong. Juicy Avocado says, my friends and I are having a birthday party at my house with cake, and we will watch the show together on my big screen TV. I cannot wait. Happy birthday. So that, of course, is tomorrow night at 11 Eastern is roughly when we are going to start, 11 o'clock at night. I know it's a little late for you guys on the East Coast, but if you remember, everybody gets to watch no matter where you are in the world, tytnetwork.com/join. And Frank Tortoriello says, White House won't discuss immigration status of Melania Trump's parents. I know, Frank, that's one of the issues we might discuss in the postgame, if you remember as well. And that sounds like a super Jersey name, which leads me to Jim Cady. Okay. Jim Cady joins us now on Rebel Headquarters. You're gonna love this guy. Jim, welcome. There's 18 different reasons why I'm a big fan. Great to have you here. So,
thanks, happy to be here.
Yes, number one, you're from Jersey. I'm from Jersey. Number two, you're from Belmar. I love Belmar. Great wings, great pizza, good beaches, fun for everybody. Number three, what you did at St. John's is heroic. And if people haven't heard the story, that's where I want to start. I know you're running for Congress. I know you're going to kick Chris Smith's ass. And boy, does that ass need kicking. But first, let's start with when you were an assistant soccer coach at St. John's. Nike was the sponsor of the team, but you wouldn't wear their clothes. Why?
Yeah, it was back in the late 90s. I was an assistant soccer coach at St. John's University. I was the goalkeeper coach. And while I was coaching, I was also going to graduate school. I was doing a degree in theology. And in my first class, I started writing a paper about Nike's labor practices in light of what's called Catholic social teaching. And what I found was if you wanted to pick a company that violated everything we claim to stand for as the largest Catholic university in the country, Nike was it. And at the same time that I was learning this over in theology, in athletics, we were negotiating a $3.5 million endorsement deal with Nike. And part of that deal, I had to wear and promote the products. I tried to negotiate myself out of the deal for about a year behind the scenes. Eventually, I took a public stand and I said I will not be a walking advertisement for a company that's exploiting poor people in developing countries all around the world. And I was given an ultimatum: you wear Nike, you drop this, or get out. I held my ground. I was forced to resign. I became the first and still I'm the only athlete in the world to say no to Nike because of the sweatshop issue. And that was big news. I started getting invited to college campuses to talk about it. And in those early audiences, I'd have the market fundamentalists screaming at me, you don't know what you're talking about. Those are great jobs for those poor people. And what else would they be doing? And you can't compare the wages there to here. They can live like a king on $1 a day over there. And I knew from my research they were wrong. The competitive Jersey athlete in me wanted to prove them wrong. So in the summer of 2000, I moved to Tangerang, Indonesia. And I went to go live with Nike sweatshop workers and tried to survive on their wage. At the time, it was $1.25 a day. And in 1 month, I lost 25 pounds trying to survive on that Nike sweatshop wage. And I slept on a cement floor with rats and cockroaches. And I met the mostly young women who made the stuff that I wore for my whole life as an athlete. And I promised them, I'll go home, I'll tell your stories, I'll advocate for you. And I thought I was going to do that, for a 6 or 7 week speaking tour. I ended up doing it full time for 15 years. And I have lectured on that issue at more than 500 campuses in 43 different states and 3 different countries. I've been brought down to Capitol Hill to brief members of Congress about the issue. In 2015, when the TPP deal was being pushed by the Obama administration, he had his press conference on Nike's campus. And I was being brought on to television shows. And from that, one of Bernie's staffers saw me, and I ended up having a clandestine mission organized through their office and working with some other nonprofits, and went to Vietnam and met with the underground labor movement, democracy movement, and brought them the side of the story that they weren't getting from our State Department and our corporate Dems, and then brought back what was really going on the ground, because Nike was the largest private employer in Vietnam at the time. And, went down and briefed the Senate Finance Committee on this. And I've just been deeply committed on that issue. And it was really a formative experience for me in that I saw how power aligned to protect an injustice. And I raged against it. And I still have been, for the last 20 years of my life. And it really created a dynamic for me that I always seek out: where are people voiceless, vulnerable, marginalized? And I try to bring my passion and commitment to social justice and my voice to bear to be a voice for those voiceless.
Yeah, but Jim, have you ever done anything progressive? All right. So now that we've learned that you're a billion times better guy than I am, we can move forward. Didn't Chris Christie once tell you to sit down and shut up too?
Yeah, a lot of people in New Jersey and around the country know the sit down and shut up moment. I mean, you can't walk into a bar here in New Jersey, you say to somebody, hey, do you remember when Christie screamed at that guy to sit down and shut up? And everyone says, yeah. And I'm like, well, that was me. What they don't know is why. That was the second anniversary of Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane Sandy devastated my hometown of Belmar. I had dropped everything for a month after the storm, helped get my town cleaned up and cleared out. In fact, a few days into the recovery, the borough gave me one of the big borough dump trucks to run all of the volunteer crews around town to help out families. And I trusted the governor when he said after we got the state stabilized that the top priority of his administration was going to be getting Sandy families back home. And here we were, fast forwarding 2 years, and we still had over 10,000 families that weren't back home yet. And the federal government had given the state of New Jersey $1.1 billion to help Sandy families get back home. And in 2 years, only $219 million had gone out the door. So I was asking the question, as the progressive who also cares about fiscal responsibility, where's the other $880 million? And the governor couldn't answer that question and eventually blew his stack and screamed at me to sit down and shut up. And I made it very clear to the governor on that day that would never happen, that I would always stand up and speak out for the people in New Jersey. I helped to form an organization called the New Jersey Organizing Project. And through the NJOP, in the advocacy work that we did, in the 3 months following the sit down and shut up moment, more money went out the door to Sandy families that had gone out in the previous 2 years. And I share that in particular for the activists that are listening to this. This is why public, provocative, active civil disobedience works. And we have to be on the front lines, challenging our elected officials and demanding accountability from them for the promises that they make.
I can't imagine a worse guy to try to get to shut up and sit down than Jim Cady. So that one gonna work. Nope. Look, I want to give your links right away in case people want to help. So you talked about activism. Well, people can get active on your campaign. They can volunteer. They could do small dollar donations. They want a little bit larger donations, right? Because my guess is you're going to be up against a lot of corporate money in a little bit. And so the links, of course, will be down below, and you just click on them in the description box on YouTube, and of course on Facebook as well in the comment section. So Jim, you are running against Chris Smith, but before you get to him, you got to win the primary. Yeah. I can't imagine that the establishment Democrats are big fans of yours. Other folks in the primary?
Yes, you talk about being up against corporate money. I'm up against it right now. I've got a guy who jumped into the race who, the day that he jumped into the primary, he said, I am a centrist at heart. This is a guy who is literally taking contributions from Wall Street billionaires. He was able to raise a decent chunk of money in a very short period of time, but he's getting massive contributions from big money people. My average contribution is about $60. His is $600. He has only 30 people in the district that have supported him financially. We outraised him in the district 16-1. Right? We are running our campaign bold, progressive, unapologetic, with small dollar contributions. 94% of the contributions that have come into Cady for Congress are under $200. But he's got the establishment are starting to circle the wagons and get behind him. And this is why it's so important. We talk about races like this all over the country. This is a red district that we can flip. And the establishment Democrats are looking to play it safe. I'm going to read you. We had a debate last night. He sent out a blast email today to his supporters. Here's what he says. One of the most thoughtful questions I received last night was about how we can convince conservative voters to support a Democrat after 3.5 decades with a Republican congressman. So his plan is to be center-right, Republican-light, and try to peel off Democrats. I look at our situation. In the last 3 midterm elections, the Democrat has only gotten 55,000 votes. We have 131,000 Democrats that are registered in the district. So we shouldn't be talking about how are we going to peel off 35,000 disaffected Republicans, which will be impossible either way. We should be asking, how do we get 80,000 Democrats to come out from the wilderness and get back engaged with the process? We have 220,000 unaffiliated voters, 110,000 of whom have not voted in one out of the last 3 elections. Right? That is where our energy should be spent. Not trying to peel off Republicans. We should be looking at how do we build a bold progressive base. So not only do we win in riding the wave in 2018, look, I live on the beach in New Jersey. Waves die down. So we better have a strong foundation. And when we build that strong foundation, not only will we pick up a congressional seat like this and defend it for decades to come, but we will start to pick up school board seats and town committee seats and county freeholder seats and state assembly seats. You know, we have 4 state districts that make up the congressional fourth. Only one of them is blue. And we're talking about how do we get conservative Republicans to join us? Now, money talks, and this is why this guy's been able to get the support of some of these county elected officials and the county committee people. And this is why I need, look, if this were ever a race that the people watching this show would want to jump into, I'm asking you right now, we need bold progressive Democrats and independents to jump on to jimkeedy.com to make $5, $10, $15 contributions. If you can do more, that's great. We need to show our force to the establishment that we can raise money and not have to compromise our bold progressive values.
So I'll add this in ending. Look, you're going to get 2 things from Jim, and it's obvious from, and this is the first time I'm meeting Jim, from this interaction. Number one, this guy's a fighter, right? That's exactly what you want. That's what you need. You need someone to fight for progressive values. And look, we're out of time, but he's for getting money out of politics. He's for Medicare for all, obviously saving the environment, et cetera. The second thing is, Chris Smith is a loathsome Republican in New Jersey. It's embarrassing to have Chris Smith represent that district. And you're not going to win it by going with a mealy-mouthed Democratic establishment way of trying to convince Republicans to vote for you. No, you just got to get, you're exactly right, Jim. You just got to get Democratic voters that exist in plenty enough votes to win. You got to get them to show up to vote. You know what'll get them to show up to vote? If they're excited about the candidate, if they think the candidate's going to fight for them. The Democratic establishment is built on people taking money and funneling it to their consultant friends. The reason they're supporting the other guys that are Keedy is because the other guy is going to raise more money and hence get the consultants more cash, right?
Cenk, let me throw this out real quick for you when you mentioned that. So there was one Democratic chairwoman that came out and endorsed this other guy that I'm running against. She now is working for a company that has the consulting job for his campaign. There's another Democratic chairman who recently endorsed him. He's now the interim campaign manager. So there aren't even levels of separation on this.
Yeah, no, to which I say, of course that's what's happening. All right, find progressive champions like Jim, and he's fought for it his whole life. He's proven it over and over again. So again, go to the links and make sure that you're donating if you can. And if you're in his district, go out there and volunteer. If he can go to Indonesia and live on $1.25, not per hour, but per day, you can go out there and make a couple of calls and knock on a couple of doors for him. Let's go get this district for actual progressives. Jim Keedy, thanks so much for joining us at Rebel Headquarters.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. Okay, guys, we're way past time. What's coming up is the post game where we're going to talk about some of the stories we didn't get to in the show today, and also afterwards, Old School. Mark Thompson's here, and I've got a lot of things I got to get off my chest on Old School. So join up for membership, help support shows like this, and get all the exclusive content, including our anniversary party tomorrow. So tytnetwork.com/join. All right, we'll see you in a minute.